All right, so it's been a while since I've actually done one of these, a code along video, and I think this is a pretty cool project. I think I have lined up here. I think a lot of my current followers on YouTube and some other people out there looking to build a comprehensive project like this. So, just a quick overview. This is basically a property rental management, like a SaaS application program web application. And what I'm going to do is I'll show you how to build a lot of this. So obviously, applications like this do get more comprehensive. There's a lot of other plugins they might build, to integrate with accounting software, things like that. So, but basically, we'll take this as far as just the management of the properties itself within this course. So now I've already gone ahead and created a public repository and built out this simple template. This is using the Material UI framework for React. So I'll show you how to access a lot of that. But the code is basically already written for um, the front end templated stuff. It's a very, very basic state management that we'll actually improve on. But basically, a lot of the hard work and heavy lifting has been done here for us. But as an overview, you can see, you can have tasks. We'll set up tasks. We'll set it up so we can actually assign tasks, and we'll set it up so that we can assign those tasks to specific properties, things like that. We'll be able to view things like the current occupancy. Obviously, this is just boilerplate right now. None of this is any data that we're actually pulling out of a database because it's not hooked up to a database yet. So this is going to be focused more, a lot heavier on the back end than it is on the front end. So of course there will be some overlap with the front end stuff. And what I hope out of this is, you'll get a comprehensive overview of the architecture, how you might go about architecting an application like this, and yeah, implementing it. So, but yeah, occupancy rates and then the individual rental properties, things like that. There's definitely going to be things that will change in here as well, for sure. So. Yeah, this is like the list of our rentals, or we might call them properties. That's probably what we'll actually rename it to, is properties. Applications for individual properties, and prospective tenants would basically be what is shown in here. And then requests. So this might be like requests people have per property, and then we might be able to take requests, turn them into tasks, and then assign them to somebody. For example, then this would be like our task page. Some of the other stuff here that isn't hooked up is like, this would typically populate as a modal um, in here to be able to add a task with a name, description, so on and so forth. But we'll get more into that as we build it out. And then settings. Probably won't do too much in here, but like probably be able to add other users that are non-administrators. That would be a good thing to put in here. And then I'll show you how to do the authentication. So how to set up a sign-in form, how to set up a sign-up or a registration form as well. We'll keep it fairly simple here. Like I don't think I'm going to do the two-factor authentication, things like that. Particularly too, we are going to use Express.js, so probably this will be a fairly lean build of this particular application on the back end. Whereas when I build an example of this using Laravel, we'll use a lot of the built-in stuff with Laravel, like sending emails, things like that. So, but yeah, but no, let's get into it. So, one of the first things you're going to want to do is create a. I'll actually close this down because we don't need this. And I'll just find the directory that I actually want to put this in. So I have this in templates. And what I'll probably do is make a one for YouTube. Okay, that already exists. Directory, we'll city into that. We don't have anything in here right now, but what we'll call this is um, property manager. I think that's a fairly accurate name. We could say like rental property manager, maybe. Yeah, that's what we'll call it there. All right. Um, Okay, obviously nothing in here at the moment. I'm going to create another directory in here. Well, actually, first things first, let's set up Git for this particular project, and we're going to pull in other repositories, like obviously the front end that we've already built out. That would be a good example. All right, and so we can cd, well, we won't cd into the back end yet. So we'll actually start by building out our front end. So we're going to clone the repository um, for uh, for the front end dashboard that I built. Let me widen this up so you can just see it a little bit better. But yeah, that's it there. So I mean, you can definitely go to my GitHub page, which is Tyson-TLO in github.com, or you can just take a look at this and type it out um, into your terminal. All right, so that's good. And then we'll actually give this a name. So I'm just going to simply call this one front end. All right, awesome. So, okay, so we got our front end. So we can go into our front end here. And you'll have to install Yarn and whatnot. I've used Yarn for the scaffolding, and I've used Vite. So I'm not using the Create React app. And you'll probably, if you work with it, you'll probably see why that is. We'll just kind of load the specific components that have changed, as opposed to reloading the whole component hierarchy the built in. So Vite is actually nice to work with. But we'll come into this directory here for the front end, and we'll go yarn install, and that's going to basically pick up everything we have in the package.json file. And it's going to install it. You'll have to look for instructions on how to install yarn if you don't have it. I mean, I do believe you could still do npm install if you're used to using npm, and that would be cool. And then I'll click, then I'll type in yarn dev, and that's going to give me this URL for this, which is basically the same URL that I have here. Yeah, but now it's being served from this application as opposed to a different one. So, okay, now actually I will stop that. I'll cd back this, and I'll just open up my code editor. So I've set it up on the command line that if I go code dot within the directory that I'm currently in the terminal, it's going to open up my Visual Studio Editor here. You might have to go in, open up your Visual Studio Editor or whatever editor you use, go to that directory that you actually created. Yeah, and then add it in there. Here we're going to go back in. We don't have anything built out as a boilerplate for the back end, so we're going to build all this from scratch, and we're going to use this. I'm build this using Express in Node and also Sequelize for our ORM. So as I mentioned, this will be pretty slim. Yeah, this will be pretty slim in terms of a build, very lean, which I actually like, especially when prototyping stuff out. So let's open up our terminal here. You'll use the control tilde if you're on Mac OS. I'm sorry, I don't know what it is for Windows. But yeah, so we'll cd into the back end. We'll go npm init. I'm going to use npm for this. I'm just going to call this do defaults for everything. So you can also go like -y, and then you're good to go there. And then we'll go npm install Express. And another thing we're going to want to install right away is npm install Sequelize. And we're also going to want to install the Sequelize CRM, CLI tool. And that's just basically npm install. We're going to install it globally here. So, it'll be available anywhere on our computer, basically, on our system. I already have it installed, so it shouldn't, I don't know what it will do here. It should tell me it's already installed. If it's not globally, or it'll add it to the package.json file, which it doesn't. We just have a Sequelize, but anyways, okay. And then we'll go Sequelize init. What this is going to do is it's going to basically scaffold out our project in here a fair bit, like provide us with models and stuff like that, and migration files, things like that. for us to work with. So, and we got to use that. We're going to go npx sequelize -cli init. Okay, you can see it creates 3 folders for us, basically: models, migrations, and seeders. And then in the models file, it provides us an index.js file. This is going to require us to add a config file. Here it's config.json. That's cool. We can keep it all as JSON. We also have to decide on things like what database we want to use for the project. So, I mean, Sequelize, you might have to, you're going to have to install things like whatever we're going to use, whatever database we're going to interface with. So, in this case, I think I'm going to keep it simple, and I'll just use SQLite, or I mean, I could use Postgres too, but I think for this, it makes more sense for me to use SQLite, and then I can actually shift the database even in the repo. That gets very easy. And SQLite is quite performant, actually. I don't have much of an issue using SQLite, especially when, like templating stuff out or whatever. It's lightweight, but it is still performant, and that's fine for me as a SaaS. If you're building a little SaaS product where the users are going to be fairly limited, and you don't have to worry about it being a huge drain on resources. So of course, if it's bigger, yeah, you'll definitely want to look at more users. You'll definitely want to look at more performance, better performance options like Postgres, which is usually what I deploy in a lot of my production stuff is with Postgres. So for a SQL database structure. So yeah. Anyways, we need to add our config. So we do have our config.json file here. We can see that it's built out for MySQL. But what we actually need to do is we need to build this out for SQLite. So we will do that. So to do that, we will, we'll configure basically the configuration file. We'll take care of here in a second. But let's install SQLite 3. You've already installed Sequelize, so that's cool. We don't need to do anything else there in terms of dependencies we have to install to get this to work. All right, so as you can see, that works, and we have SQLite 3 in there. Perfect. We'll go back to config.json. SQLite, we're not going to require a password or anything. In fact, the only thing that we really have to do here, add here, is basically specify what database we're using, what dialect, and what we want to use as, oops, this is a JSON. You could export this too as, like basically a JavaScript module if you wanted to. I think what I'll do is, where do we want to put this? Well, we'll put this at the root of like the backend project. So config.json. Let's see here. We'll just call it, dev.SQLite in there. And then we do, okay, we have tests. So this is really cool actually with testing. I do like to use SQLite for building out testing stuff, just because because you can get it to run actually in memory. So, which is like super performant. Especially if you're like running migrations and and running the migrations over and over again to do specific tests that way. So, all right, cool. Project SQLite. Then we'll have to specify like what it is specifically we're the development environment we're working in there. So you can see env up here. So basically it'll pull it from our environment file, or it'll default to development, which is cool. In this case, I mean, we could leave it because in production, we would deploy this with a proper environment file specified for production there. So, alrighty. All right, so the next thing we want to do here is let's create an app.js file. And here, this is the entry point for our application. What's up with that? Why don't you want to create app.js? All right, and then in here, we'll import Express. All right. Okay. And we'll need to put our body parser in here so we can actually basically, parse say incoming JSON. You can see this populates a lot of it for me. I do use Copilot quite a bit, which cuts down a lot on, a lot of boilerplate code that I have to write. So, pardon me. Okay, so app express. Probably want to specify a port. I mean, we could also do or if you can't pull anything out there, which is cool. And then I like to keep my files fairly clean and broken out. Don't want to see large files. That is definitely a no-go. So what I'll do is I'll break out my routes into an API section because we might want to serve up, some actual like templated HTML at some point. But we'll specify basically we want our directories to look like, um, you know, say in this case, localhost. We want it to actually look like API slash. I'm not going to put a version in here. That's not really necessary. But we might want to say like have an authentication route, things like that. So, but we'll break it out by basically creating an API route specific file here. So we do need to, of course, use our body parser for every incoming request because we only expect to receive JSON data here. And we have to create it yet, but what we'll do is this will actually be for our handling our static assets that we might decide to store. And we'll put that in a public folder. So, as an example, when we build out the application section, we might want to store, applications. So we put that in there. For that, we'll go app.use. Here, we're going to have to import it, but basically we want it to bring in the API router. So this would be like basically from the API router file. Routes/API. Do we have a routes folder in here yet? No. So let's create a routes folder. API.js. All right. So we'll be able to export it from there, but we'll finish off building our file here first. So yeah, we're bringing an API router. Perfect. That's good. Let's do some basic hello world stuff in here to make sure that everything's hooked up and running, as it should. So, let's see here. Yeah, we'll listen, and then we'll just say property manager app. Listening on port, whatever it is that we want to listen on. Okay, cool. Let's go to API router. Oops. Need to go API.js. And yeah, in our API.js file, we will import Express again, because that is required. All right. We'll also want to do things like, well, we might want to add in here some, I don't think we'll actually know. Under API, we don't need to have middleware protecting like, routes that require authentication yet. We probably want to do that within specific, other specific route files. So, yeah, but let's basically initialize a router. All right, so that's not available. Okay, router with capital R in there. We'll say router.use. And in the router.use, we're probably, so this is the API file. We're probably going to want to do like, well, first thing we'll hook up is going to be the authentication. But you know what, before we do that, we'll basically just say, let's say request response. All right, and then we'll say response.json, and we'll just say, yeah, message hello world. All right. Sports equal router. All right. So if we come down to our command line here and we just go node app.js, okay, so that looks like it's listening, which should be good. And because this is a GET request, we'll go local host 3000. All right, cannot get. Well, what is it actually listening on? Yeah, it is listening on port 3000. So, no, sorry, my bad. I don't know why I'm going to use. It should actually be router.get. There we go. And we're running. That's not working for us here at the moment. And of course, that's probably not working because we're not adding in API. Okay, great. There we go. So our routers, yeah. So basically, our router and our application is working for us right now. So that's great. All right. So let's create another route in here. So we'll call this one auth.js, not ours. All right. Auth.js. All right. And we'll create another one. Probably call it. Well, okay. Let's focus on the auth for now, I suppose. That's probably all we need to work on at the moment. So we'll go express equals, so typical boilerplate stuff in here. And let's see here, router. It's probably, so there's going to be like probably 3, I would say we need in our auth routes. So one of them is going to be a login, probably, I would think. We'll create a controller for this. Like we're going to use kind of the MVC sort of style in here, right? So we'll say login. This one will be auth controller.login. We can actually go ahead and make our controllers here as is. So we'll say auth controller.js. Okay. And then let's say const. Will just be an empty object for now. Auth controller dot login. One, we always know to expect the request on the response. Okay. Yeah, we can export that. That's fine. What's the other thing that we should do in here? Probably add about 2 other routes to this. So one will be basically register, or probably more following the language of what we have in our actual application. We should probably do sign up. So okay, perfect. And then obviously importantly, we should also do the ability to sign out. Now we're going to actually, you know what? Sign in, sign up, and we'll say sign out. All right. Okay, so that language is fairly clear to me then. In there. So sign in, sign up, sign out. We can go back to auth. So So sign in. Let's import our auth controller. So that happens automatically for us. The namespace resolver, basically. Sign in. Sign up, sure. And sign out. Okay. Thank you very much. For autocomplete there. All right. So that should work there. Auth controller, sign up. These are all post methods, signups, sign in, sign out. We could actually make this one like, we could make it a delete method. That would be another way of doing it, but I'm fine doing post for specifically for signing out in there. So the other thing we need to do here in our API now that we have the auth set up is we do need to use our auth package or our auth file there. So router file. So let's say auth router equals require, we want to require auth in there. We'll say auth router. Okay. That should work for us. And you want to make sure that it's actually hooked up. You could just create a simple cat method in here and check it out through our browser to make sure that that's actually working for us correctly. Actually, we'll just do this. Okay. So now I want to go API auth. Again, we get hello world, or you would say hello auth. Oh, why that's not taken. Well, I know exactly why that's not taken. It's not taken because this is not refreshing with our changes. So I'll show you how to deal with that specifically to refresh every single time we make a change. And that's going to be using Nodemon or Nodejman, or I don't know what the pronunciation is on that specifically. All right, so to do that, you'll need to install Nodemon. It's probably something you want to just install globally in there. It's already installed for me. On this, and it shouldn't actually add anything to your package.json file by installing it globally. It's just kind of like more of a dev thing that you'll handle, as your own dev. I think Node.js also has some stuff built in to be able to refresh, but there's some other things in here that I want to do, like instead of just saying like npm start, I could say npm serve, and then that's gonna basically serve the app.js file and refresh it every time there's a change to that file or anything that any dependencies that it actually has therein. So let's npm run serve. Okay, good. You can see that is actually restarting and it's watching anything therein with JS or JSON, and it will actually refresh it. So as an example, I could click save, control command S if you're on Mac, or control S if you're on Windows. In there. Now, when we go API/auth, we should see hello auth and any sort of message that's changed. Within that, you'll see that automatically refreshes for us. So this is obviously key for your development environment. If you didn't already know about that, which who knows, maybe you did. Cool. Okay, so there's some things we need to do for the sign up. If we, one good approach I think to software development is to work backwards. I've worked on teams before where they've suggested that, and it's worked well for our teams. So you kind of work from a user interface and discern what you need from there. So if we go back to our user interface, we can see that the only things that we're really going to require right now are our first name, last name, email address, and password. This I'm going to get rid of. This was actually, if you go to the MUI website, you'll see that I'll give you an example. Let's duplicate this, and then we'll say MUI React, okay, MUI.com. And they actually have, if you go MUI templates, you'll be able to see, yeah, some free templates they have in here. So I just, for this in particular, I've taken their sign in and sign up forms. I just copied and pasted the source code therein. So, which is link out to, yeah, those specific pages in there. All right, cool. Okay, so basically, yeah, we're going to need. So this will basically be the user's model. There's actually one other thing I wanted to show you. This is a very simple diagram of our uh, of what our database schema is going to look like in terms of relationships. So this isn't obviously the whole schema, but this is, we're building on it basically from here, and everything starts, for authentication with the actual user. So for the user, we're going to want to see things like first name, last name, email. Let me come back here. Yeah, and then password. Let's go back up to users here and add our password, which will be varchar, and that is definitely going to be not null in there. Okay, so for the users model, we need, first name, last name, email, password, verified app. I don't know if we'll get around to implementing the verified app right now, but verified app would be basically, they need to confirm their email, and until they confirm their email, they're not a verified user. So you probably, in the middleware that we build out, we're probably going to want to set it up so that they can't actually access the product until they verify that, they're the owner of the email, just kind of a verification too that they're a real person, which is very important too, because you don't want a bunch of spammers stuff on your platform. That's never fun. Then having to root them out that way. So let's go to our sign up page. I'm actually going to move sign up a level. We can get rid of this. We don't really need this anymore. We'll go to the sign up page in here. And there's a few things we're going to want to take in. So there's a couple ways to handle this. One, we could create our own like request middleware. I like the structure that Laravel uses, where you build your own requests, and we can do things like basically ensure that the request itself contains all the items we need it to contain, and if it doesn't, then we would want to handle, some error handling and some response back to the user and the and the interface that they're working with, so they know what they didn't provide correctly. Now, it's obviously on the back end, you want to make sure that your data is sanitized no matter what, and proper error reporting that way. On the front end, you'll want to do that as well, in both places, in order to improve the user experience, for sure. So we could say, let's see here. So we could set up we'll do a new file. We'll call this folder requests. And then in this one, it's going to be auth. And then we'll just say like sign up request. We could say .validate. In this case, what do we want to call it? Yeah, I'll call it sign up request. Sign up request .js. Okay. And in our validating of the registration here, we're going to want to do things like, well, there's a couple of things we could do. One, when we verify their password and their password confirmation, in here we can validate that, but then we can also within the request body append certain things to that particular object, like a password that is already properly hashed. That would be important. So in this case, we're going to use the bcrypt library to hash them. But there's other things we're going to want to do in here too, like for the sign up request, and that is, we're going to want to make sure that users don't already exist with those emails, things like that. So we'll try to break it down in a way that's fairly easy to understand. I think that'll definitely be key here, to making this work well. So first thing we actually really should do is we should create a user model before we go any further. But let's go. We'll say sign up request. Okay, that'll be an empty object. And then we'll say validate. Yeah. Okay. So we do know we need that. We don't need a username. We do need not a username, but a first name, right? A last name. Now you might notice my naming conventions here are to match the database, what's going into and what's coming out of the database. I mean, it's really a personal choice. On a lot of teams, you're going to find that they'll have their own, they'll follow some pattern in terms of their syntax. When naming conventions, like I'll give you an example, probably the most common thing I've seen is like with the PEP 8 standard for Python, you'll use a lot of underscores or snake case is what that's called as a naming conventions. And so you might want to follow the same with your database. I know in Laravel, that's typically what I do. Is I'll use the snake case, but with JavaScript, passing things back and forth, that's depending on the framework you're using and the router you're using, and all the middleware between. It might reformat that for you anyway. So we'll play that one by ear in terms of how we use that on the front end, but in terms of our the case that we use for the name. So if it's case name, if it's snake case or camel case, or whatever we choose in there. Let's see here. We'll do password. We'll also do confirm password, which means we're going to have to add a field to that in there. So, okay, so we'll leave this for now. We will export it. Sign up request. Okay, we're not going to use this at the moment because what we really need to do is we need to create a user model in here. And user models and migrations are very nice and easy to um, create because we're using Sequelize as the ORM. So that'll be simple. What I'll do is we'll create the user model, and then we'll pass we'll basically end this video and then we'll continue it on in the next video. So you can open up another terminal. Yeah, you want to open another terminal anyways, and then cd into back end of the project, and then because we have the Sequelize CLI tool, we can do some pretty cool things in here. Like we can generate a migrations file and a model all at the same time here. So in this case, we do need to create a user model, and we're going to add some attributes. So these are going to show up for us in our migration as well. First name, that's definitely going to be a string. Last name is going to be a string as well. It'll automatically add an ID, so we don't need to add an ID in there, and it should automatically add things in here too, like created at, updated at, just those things that you typically want with every model that you create or every table that you create. In there, this one is also we're going to add a verified at, and this one will say is going to be date time. Let's see here. Email verified at date time. Oh, we definitely need a password, and that's going to be a string as well. What else do we need on here according to our model? So we got email, password, verified at, first name, last name. And here, okay, I think we're good. Okay. So yeah, we'll rerun this, but we'll change date time in there to be the proper attribute. And for now, what we'll do is we'll just basically do date. Should also work, and that works for us. So you can see now we have a file in the migrations, which we can definitely adjust things in here, like verified at. The date, we're going to need things in here too, like the ability to automatically, to define, defaults in here. So definitely not what we want there. but we want to basically define it as now as the default. Uh, but instead of defaults here, we definitely do not want to allow null for any of these. So it should be the default anyways in here. This one can be null, so that's fine in there. So we'll do allow null false. Obviously allow null in there. We want that to be false for the password. This one can be null. Actually, it should be null. I mean, really. And you probably also want to add a unique constraint to this one as well. So we don't want multiple users with the same email. That makes no sense. Because the email is what's also going to be used for identifying the actual login there. So last name, yeah, I mean, we should require first and last name. I mean, that just kind of makes sense to me. I don't know, false. All right, same with the first name in there. ID, auto increment, integer, primary key. These things might change. Like, let's say you're working with Postgres, you might want to change this up if you're into using unique IDs, unique identifiers across the application. That way. So this is basically like the up command in here. So this is going to create the table, and then if we have to like roll back a migration or reverse a migration, then what's going to happen in this situation is it will actually drop the table from the database in here. This becomes particularly handy too, like if you're playing around and you want to add attributes to this particular model, we can create a new migration, and then when it actually comes to dropping to reversing that migration, we would, instead of drop table, it's like we would remove columns or drop columns. We would basically modify our table in there to make all that work. So all right, so we have that there. Now we'll go to the user model. I like to capitalize everything in here. All right. And we're returning the user in here. So some of this will come in handy here for associative models. Like for example, the next step in here would be to create a company, and then everything would be under the company. Or, in the case of building out like a multi-tenancy application, this application, we might want to make it so that users can work between companies or between accounts. It'll definitely give us some more flexibility that way. So this will help us, as we associate these particular, the user model with other ones with, has many relationships or has many through, uh, relationships defined that way, more or less. So here we definitely need to make some modifications to the model. I would say in the case of the users, there's certain things we're going to want to do, like handle validation for one. So what we'll do is we will reformat this a little differently. And actually, the syntax that I like to use isn't actually using the user extends model. I'd rather just use like Sequelize define in this situation. So um, yeah, so let's do that. We'll use Sequelize define in here instead, and we'll take care of that way. So we'll start out create const user. We'll have to import Sequelize in this situation. We'll say user. Sorry, actually, it should be Sequelize.define, and we'll actually import that properly shortly. All right. So we need to define certain things like the first name, which we know is going to be a string for the type. We definitely don't want to allow false. We want to allow false in there, but there's other things in here we might want to add, like particular validation. This is like an extra bit of validation we we could probably actually even tie into this as we try to insert it into the database. So I would say for a first name, we really shouldn't need more than 50 characters. That seems excessive otherwise. Last name, again, we got string, allow no false. Validation, same deal. I've yet to meet a person with a single letter for her last name, so uh, hopefully we're not going to get ourselves into any trouble that way. So um, yeah, then we'll need to do the email, obviously. That's going to be a string type. Definitely need to have that. We need to have a value there. It can't be null. And that one definitely does need to be unique. And the validation in that, it needs to be an email. So we do get validation built in. Um, we can be able to check to see if it is an email. We don't have to write our own regex to verify any of that information. Yeah, we also need to add, not just to verify that, but we should add here password. That's going to be a string type as well. That one plus validation, let's say between 8 and 255, they can go as far as they want with that in particular. And yeah, I mean, we probably want to add things in here as well, like make sure that there's a capital letter, that there's um, not just 8 characters, but we have capitals, lowercase, we have numbers. We even have some special characters in there, but we'll come back. We'll take care of that actually down the road. I don't really want to do that in here, but yeah, we'll save that to reformat that a little bit. Verify that. Obviously, that's important. That's going to be a date. That one can be null, so that's fine there. And then we need to, we'll have our timestamp. So basically created that and updated that will be necessary in there. Don't need to add any of that for the timestamps. Or you know what? I mean, we could also like declare those timestamps up here, which is also cool. And then we should have a default value in here as well. And I would say that would be date types now. So we'll have to import date types, which we'll import from Sequelize and our data types in there. And we'll also have to import Sequelize as well, probably because, well, I'll get into that a little bit later. No, not what I want to do there. Okay, there we go. We'll have to, we'll also have to declare our Sequelize object in here to make that work for us. Our model name, it's going to be user. We already have that defined up there, so it's not really necessary, but we can be explicit, so why not, right? All right. So in order to initialize that, we're going to have to pull our information out of our config file. So this basically we're going to give access to, let it know what database file, how it's being stored, what the dialect is, things like that. So we'll say Sequelize. This is the object that we're defining here. And we'll just say new. We need to bring in Sequelize from Sequelize. All right. And we could say config development. This would be defining the environment. But if it doesn't exist, then we could also say development. And then basically from the config file, it's going to pull out this information in here. So we've got a lot of flexibility in there. Yeah, what else? So we got our user model defined. We do need to export it. That's important. Um, in there, and then from here we can also do things like create associations um, from users to whatever else. But I'll touch on that a little bit later. Let's say module.exports user in this situation. Okay. Yeah, I think we're good to actually. Let's see here. Yeah, we should actually be good to migrate this now. All right, so we can do that in here. So npx sequelize db migrate. All right, so you can see here that it created the database here for us, and it would have also created the user model. So to verify that, I mean, we could, um, we could say SQLite3. All right, and we could say tables, and you can see in there we actually have tables. I think the command to define those tables. I don't know, what would that be? No, that's not the command. Table name. What was that? What was it? I also think schema user should also work for us in here. No. Um, okay, there we go. Okay, so we can see that migrated everything properly. So ID, first name, last name, email, verify that, password, created that, and that gives us the definitions on that. And yeah, what it is. So there you go. That's awesome. So our model is created and our migration is defined. So we can start to do things like actually insert users into this um, using our controller um, to make that happen through our route. So we will do that in the next video.